Greetings, RetroCultists. My RetroCult co-founder, CrazySodaGuy, and I recently attended the Winston-Salem Toy Card Show. It was a midsummer event at the fairgrounds, a little smaller than usual, but still packed with great finds. A couple of our favorite vendors were missing, which was a bit of a letdown, but I still scored some great retro toys. Hopefully, the full lineup of comic and toy dealers will return later this year. Now let me show you what I picked up. Okay, let's start by having a look at what we got from the Winston-Salem Toy Show. Let's start with something small. This was just really bizarre. I don't even remember these from being when I was a kid. But these are apparently stickers that were made so that you could put them on Ziploc sandwich bags for your kids' lunches, I guess. I don't know if they ever made it into our part of North Carolina because my mom never got any of these, and these seemed like exactly the kind of things I would have begged her to get. This one, as you can see, is from Superman 3. Zoom in there a little bit. A lot of people consider that one of the worst Superman movies. Obviously, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, being the worst. And I do agree that one is pretty terrible, but not without its charm. But I actually, as a kid, really enjoyed Superman 3. Richard Pryor's comedy was great, and and the Superman fighting Clark Kent in the junkyard scene was actually one of my favorites, even though that's one of the things most people criticize. I actually love that part of the movie. But anyway, this was a small find. I think I paid $1 for it, so not very much, but that's definitely something I'm going to, frame or find some other way to display this. Let's start with some other smalls that I got. One thing we're always on the lookout for are buttons, and we found some pretty cool ones this time. This is a official member of the superhero club, Green Lantern. I don't know if I've never seen these buttons before. I'm assuming there might be a series of these, like with other DC, possibly Marvel superheroes too. But I rarely see Green Lantern merch from back in the day. He didn't seem to get as much love, obviously, as Superman and Batman. So it was cool to see a Green Lantern button. Then, of course, I've been looking for one of these for a while. The official member Superman Club. I think this is from there was a Superman fan club. I've seen these buttons at a lot of different shows. I've never really pulled the trigger on them, but this was a really nice one. Like, it's almost perfect. There's a little bit of like scuffing around the bottom, although I can't tell. That might actually have been during production. But otherwise, it's like perfect. So, and the price was right. I think $5. So there's a Batman and Robin Club button that I've seen around a lot. That one seems to always be more expensive, so I'm waiting to see if I can find a good deal on that. Then this one's just weird because this one, we're not really Miller drinkers around here, but my wife loves Halloween. That's also our wedding anniversary, so that has double meaning for us. And of course, my wife is a huge Dracula fan. I love Dracula too. And when you find a Miller button, I don't remember these Halloween buttons. These, I wouldn't have been of drinking age when these were made anyway. So, and my family weren't drinkers. So I'm not surprised I'm not aware of these buttons. But now I'm on the look to see if there are other ones besides Dracula, especially if there's a Creature from the Black Lagoon one. I doubt there is, but if there is, I'll find it. And this was $4, and so that was a nice little deal for that. Then these were really picked up by my wife. I'm not as big a Muppets fan as she is, but she loves Kermit. I do remember loving the Muppets back in the day. And so these little pins, just plastic molded pins with literally like a safety pin on the back. I don't know if these were an art project or actual. I think they were probably actually manufactured. But green is keen, and then of course Miss Piggy. So those were a no-brainer. Now let's start getting into some of the toys that I actually found. This is a Superman plastic figure. I actually remember having this as a child in the 70s. I'm pretty sure it's actually 1974 is the copyright date on it. I think there was a series of them. Actually, I believe this is the other one. I didn't have this one as a kid. I seem to remember these. You could buy them at like Kmart and other stores like that. They came in two different packaging. The ones I remember were actually, the figures were loose in a box, and you would just have a lot of the figures just thrown in there together, and I think they probably cost less than $1 each. I don't remember having the Clark Kent Becoming Superman figure, but that was nice to find. I did have the Superman not breaking a chain. Now that I think about this as an adult, this isn't exactly a great feat of strength. He's not snapping the chain. He's literally just stretching the chain. And, I guess we can all do that. But when I was a kid, I really loved this. Although, as you can see, there's no articulation. A lot of figures were like that back in the day. So they're really just more statues. Although, as kids, we made it work. But those are, they're not in great shape, but actually I think the wear on them just kind of adds to the character. I don't have my originals anymore. Clearly, those I'm sure have been long gone in some attic clearing project years ago. But it's kind of nice to have them again, and I can kind of even think that these are like the ones I had, with the little bit of scuffing where they were well loved. Then this I have never seen before. This is like a paper doll, a Superman, but as you can see, he's got articulation, technically 5 points of articulation: his shoulders, hips, and his neck. This reminds me of the Halloween decorations that you used to find in the where there were full-size skeletons, witches, and I believe there are actually superhero ones. Let's see, this doesn't appear to have a date on it. Just it was made by Durham Industries in Hong Kong. And yeah, no date. So I would bet this is either late 60s or sometime in the 70s, maybe late 70s. This might have been done because of the Superman movie. But it's really just for something that old, made of paper, the fact that it's in such amazing shape, and I think I paid $10 for it. That was a no-brainer I had to have this. So this will definitely be going into a shadow box frame and going into the Fortress of Solitude. Yeah, and love it. Then I'm always on the lookout for any old rack toys that I had back in the day. And I didn't have this one. Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry, I missed a button. We'll talk about this one. The same dealer that had all the buttons also had a Dread button and the original comic book badge. I don't really know how old this is. I'm guessing 80s, 90s possibly. Probably released for the Judge Dredd movie in the mid-90s. There was a bit of a merchandising push for that. But anytime I see Dredd merch, I'm a sucker. If it's not too expensive, I've got to have it. But now back to this. This is something I don't recall particularly seeing this. I'm always on the lookout for the Spider-Man web shooters. which I had multiple sets of because they were good for about one use. But when I saw the Spider-Man water gun, especially still packaged on the card, this just brings back a lot of memories, because this is definitely something I would have been begging my mother and father for as we were leaving Zayre's or Brindle's or Kmart. I love finding old rack toys like this. I'll definitely be keeping this on the card. It's so hard to find those cheap rack toys still on the card. The artwork is actually pretty amazing. It looks like they just took a John Romita Spider-Man and an artist, because it's definitely a different style added later, but drew the water gun and has Spider-Man splashing the water gun. But with the buildings, everything, it's a beautiful example. Now, of course, with all rack toys, there's no art on the back, which is a shame. The gun itself is pretty well done. I mean, it looks like it's a nice solid plastic water gun. I love the recessed Spider-Man symbol. And then you, of course, have the Spider-Man webbing on the top. It has a little aiming eyepiece that you can raise. You see it actually in the artwork. But it was made by Ahi, 1978. That tracks. Just very nice. That's one thing. Water guns are something that I had a lot as a kid. I think every kid in the 70s and 80s had at least a few water guns. I also have a Space 1999 water gun that I'll do another video about later. And I would love to find some of the Star Trek water guns from that period also on the card. I know there was one water gun that was the Enterprise, and then they had another water gun that looked like the Phaser from the original TV show. I would love to find both, but when I was a kid, I definitely would have preferred the Phaser, because that was my cosplay of the time. So I would have wanted something that looked like they had on the show. But anyway, this was a great find, another inexpensive, which I will say finding these rack toys on the card is not easy, and a lot of times they're not cheap anymore. They were the cheapest of cheap at the time, but finding them still on the card can sometimes cost a lot of money. This one, thankfully, was not. It was a nice bargain. All right, and then so that's about all the toys I found at the show. What I want to show you now is really more from my Dungeons and Dragons days. I have been looking for the Dungeons and Dragons, at least a player's handbook and a Dungeon Master guide. All of my old books, unfortunately, during different travels, have been sold and traded and given away. And now, of course, I'm at that age in my life where I want all of it back. So, unfortunately, I will say it's difficult to find some of the Dungeons and Dragons books in good condition at a price that I'm willing to pay. But this would definitely be the deal of the day. One of the dealers there this is a second edition Dungeon Master screen, which I remember playing many hours of Dungeons and Dragons with this. I was both a player and for the group that we had at the time, I was also a Dungeon Master from time to time. So this was a nice find. This is something I'm not really looking to get back into Dungeons and Dragons as far as playing, just because, unfortunately, it's so hard to schedule a group together. All of my old friends that were into Dungeons and Dragons, we've all gotten married, had kids, moved on, so it would be nearly impossible to get everybody together again. But I would love to have the books themselves, just so that I can reminisce and indulge in a little nostalgia. But that was the beginning. That was a good deal. But these are really the star of the show. This same dealer, I hate to brag about a deal, but this is one I'm willing to brag about. I got a really good condition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons First Edition, Dungeon Master's Guide, Player's Handbook, and Fiend Folio, along with the Dungeon Master Screen for Second Edition for $50. And having looked at what it costs to get good quality copies of these books, I couldn't get the money out fast enough. So we have a First Edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide, of course, by Gary Gygax, the man himself, and published by TSR. And as you can see, the foreword was written by Mike Carr in 1979, and this is the revised edition from December 1979. So, and as you can see, it's in great condition. I'm definitely going to be doing another video later where we do a deeper dive, and I may just flip through and we'll look at some of the more interesting rules or things that are in here. Here's the Player's Handbook, published in 1978, although this is a 6th printing from January of 1980. But again, beautiful. The pages are all white and crisp. The spine is still nice and strong. That's what I normally find with these, are the spines are damaged or the glue is starting or stitching. I'm not sure. I think these are glued, but the glue will let go sometimes. But these look, not exactly brand new like I would have found them then, but they're pretty close. And then, of course, the Fiend Folio. This is another one we will definitely be doing a deep dive in, just because this apparently belonged to Linda Duncan. Linda, thank you for taking care of your work if you happen to stumble across this video. But you took great care of your product. And this one's published in 1981. And I've got to say, the Monster Manuals, Fiend Folios, they were always my favorite, because the rules books, obviously, they're great. You got to learn how to play the game. But I could spend hours just looking through the different monsters and reading about the history or the development of this creature. And I mean, that's hours of entertainment right there. And so we will definitely do a deep dive into the Fiend Folio at a later date. Actually, we'll probably do a deep dive into all of them, because I would love to look at, even though I will say I really never played First Edition. When I was working at Carolina Comics in the mid to late 90s, mid to late 80s, that's really when I got into playing Dungeons and Dragons, and by then Second Edition was out, and my friends were all into Second Edition, and so that's really the first one I ever played. But I did end up, even back then, buying First Edition books, and just because I found them interesting, and so it's good to have them again. So that really does it for this haul from the Winston-Salem Toy Show. It was a great show. We had a blast. I was a little disappointed. There were a couple of dealers that weren't there, probably because this is kind of the height of the convention season. There's a lot. As a dealer, you're definitely going to want to pick your battles, and so I'm hoping that they will be back. The Winston-Salem Toy Show usually happens 3 or 4 times a year. I know there's always a spring show and a winter show. I don't recall a midsummer show before, so this might be something they're experimenting with. It was great to attend. But I will definitely be going back when the show returns in November, usually right around Thanksgiving. And so hopefully my missing dealers will be there then, and we'll have more good retro stuff to show you. So please don't forget to like and subscribe. That really helps the channel grow. And if you have any suggestions for future videos or things that we might have looked at today that you'd like a deeper dive into, please don't hesitate to leave comments, and we will see you next time.